to Sustainability Snippets. I'm your host, Mukund Vasudevan. As you know, this is a series of conversations with industry leaders, scientists, innovators, just anybody passionate about sustainability. And the aim of this series is to improve the world's sustainability one snippet at a time. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to none other than Ms. Naina Lal Kidwai, Chairman of the Advent Private Equity Group. She's also the chair of the FICCI Water Mission and a person passionate about sustainability. She led an illustrious career in banking before this, as you all know. She retired as the executive director on the board of HSBC Asia Pacific and the chairman of HSBC India. She's the first Indian woman to receive an MBA from Harvard Business School and is the recipient of the Padma Shri Award for her contribution to trade and industry in India. She's also the author of several books, two of which are bestsellers, one on the stories of women who have led large organizations in India, and the other on sustainability and green finance. Welcome, Naina.
So welcome, Naina. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's a pleasure to have you. I wish we could have done this face-to-face, but we're doing it in times of COVID. Without much ado, I'm going to jump right in. So first, I'd like to just start with what got you into sustainability after in the illustrious career in banking, industry. What got you into sustainability?
Well, to start with, I guess I've always been interested in wildlife, the environment. I've been an avid bird watcher since I was 15 years old. So interest in things to do with nature and its bounty has always been very much a part of my life. So my journey, to answer your question, was one which started maybe even pre-HSBC, got deeply embedded and enriched by my time at HSBC. And then it was really post-retirement that I was able to give it a little more time, both in water, and started the India Sanitation Coalition, where I do spend a lot of energy and time on the sanitation agenda for the country.
Yeah, you've really achieved a lot, not just even pre-HSBC, it sounds like. In fact, it's funny, I'm an avid bird watcher too. Till today, I kind of have that eye for birds. Anything I see flying across, I kind of look at. But I think that's what sets the roots for such passions very often. Switching to my next question, which is what's the role of financial institutions in sustainability? Is it just funding projects, or do you think there's more to it?
I think that financial institutions can actually be the agents of change when it comes to any of these agendas around sustainability. So it's as important in terms of what we fund and in terms of what we shouldn't fund. If you look at the Equator Principles, which many banks like HSBC have followed for years in the project finance arena, it's very clear where banks have all come together to say, these are the projects that we will fund and the nature of sustainability agendas which they need to show in terms of not raping the environment, making sure that the standards are acceptable. And those are the projects that get funded. The problem, of course, is, and which is something that I faced in my career in India, was for everything we said no to, it was quite possible for that project to find funding through a local commercial bank because the standards here had not emerged. And a lot of work has gone in. I've been part of an exercise through the IBA with the support of GIZ and others, where we finally got a base level agenda out with the blessings of RBI, which sets what the banks in the country will not do. It's very guideline oriented. It's quite soft. I think it needs to be a lot more robust. But at least the conversation around the role of banks in funding, keeping sustainability in mind, is critical. The other area, and I think it's one of the areas why progressive banks like HSBC embraced it, was risk. And we began to introduce issues like water shortage, climate change, floods into our risk parameters as we analyze companies, so that our credit teams also built this in. And that was in our own best interest, to make sure that we weren't left with stranded assets on the one hand, as you've seen with a lot of coal assets around the world. They're stranded. I mean, they're being shut down. What do you do if you've been a banker to one of these companies? So if you're able to see these trends well in advance and understand the risks for what they are, not just for being altruistic and doing the right thing, but also in your own best interest, the two actually converge very well, because in fact, development and sustainability can go hand in hand.
Thank you. I think that's very, very true because I remember someone saying that the important thing for industry to do is almost bake in the cost of a sustainability when they embark on a new project. And if they don't bake in the true cost, it's their sustainability which is impacted, not just the green factor, but it's their sustainability. So true cost of water.
There's a whole other area, which is the capital markets and financial institutions therein. I only cover the lending side, but the institutional investors are very clear in terms of, and we've seen the announcement from BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and others today saying that they will not invest in certain companies unless they can show their ESG agenda. Yeah. So it's a little wider environment. It's also in terms of diversity and social and governance, etc. But the fact is that those agendas have become critical. So if you're a listed company, and I'm really glad that SEBI in India has set out those guidelines as well, that you have to be mindful about what that investor community is looking at, because otherwise they're going to dump your stock. So it's become as important for companies now to look at that agenda, and for us as financial institutions in India to adopt some of these best practices also for the way we look at these investments. So finance is key, whether it's capital markets or debt to the banking.
True. You spoke, when we discussed this earlier, you spoke about green bonds. Tell us a little bit about that and the role it could play, whether it's municipal or industrial or just capital markets, right?
I think green bonds have been a very interesting innovation. They actually emerged after one of these great meetings that we had in the World Economic Forum, where we had a combination of the World Bank and the UN chairs, both of them, converging some of the institutions. And this was one of the thoughts that came out of it. And the good news is that it's taken off, and it's taken off in India as well. I think in our country, it's still somewhat limited because the application of green bonds has really only been applied to renewables, because that's sort of a natural place to go, and it's a great place for it to go. But green bonds can be widened to include water efficiency, energy efficiency projects, which are green. But the issue is we need somebody there to be able to certify they are green, so that the institution that is doing the green bond financing is believes that it's kosher and that it is eligible for that green bond financing. So we need to look at the skilling and the ability to actually certify these projects as much as we look at the growth of the green bond market that looks at these fundings. There are other smaller initiatives but equally important in terms of impact bonds, which are coming into the sustainability space. We've had a couple of these issued through Grameen Bank in India, and we are looking at it for sanitation as well. So there are many instruments, and we need equity and debt, and certainly the green bond market to flourish as we go ahead with this look at sustainability. And ultimately, I would love to believe that if you're a sustainable venture, you're the one that gets financed first before anything else.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, and I look forward to that day in India. So as you said, it is emerging. There are a few ESG funds emerging. There are a few governments considering, I think these are the first baby steps, trading of wastewater, things like that, which we have heard of in our FICCI mission, right? That's the first step. If you create a liquid market, then you can have bonds, right, around it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So last question, and I want you to gaze into a crystal ball and say, as United Nations has these SDG goals, 17 of them. If you had to pick 3 for India, which 3 would you pick to focus on? I mean, all are important, but which 3 would you pick?
So for me, the most important SDGs inevitably are the spaces in which I work, which are water and sanitation, SDG 6, 6.1, 6.2, because the linkages of water and sanitation to health and nutrition are critical. Even today, we have people dying of diarrhea in this country. And imagine what we can achieve in terms of immunity and building people's health if we can ensure they never have to go to hospital because they have clean water to drink and they have a sanitary, healthy environment in which they grow up. the whole concept of wasting or children not growing to their full size, physical and mental, because of diarrhea, because of malnutrition, vanishes if we can give the clean, healthy environment. So to me, these would be the most important ones to tackle. And if you look at the criticality of it in this COVID pandemic, it's even more so. Without water, how do you wash your hands? Without clean water, how do you make sure that you don't fall sick? How do you ensure your immunity stays up high so that you can battle this COVID virus as it comes to get you? So hygienic, clean conditions and water are key in this pandemic and are indeed key for our country's growth as we, as citizens, look to be healthy and well.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. I think it's spot on. Water is so important, not just for drinking water, but for health, for food, even agriculture requires it. And of course, industrialization too. Naina, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. As always, your insights were strategic and had a touch of reality to them just because you've been involved with this for so long and are passionate about it. Thank you. And we're really proud to have you helping the country with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukund. It's always wonderful working with you at the FICCI Water Mission. Take care.